geography PowerPoint. So when we look at the geography of the place, we're going to be looking at the natural elements and how that is going to affect the people, because the geography of Greece is going to have a huge impact on the Greeks politically and economically. So their governments and how they made money. So let's check it out. Here are some pictures from Greece. Now, when we did our do now, a lot of you noticed mountains, which we've got lots of mountains. We have lots of trees covering the land too, which we didn't pick up because it would have been hard in our topographical map to see that. And from this map here, we see plenty of water. Oh yeah. So we use these terms during our do now. We see that Greece is a series of peninsulas and a very large archipelago. So we've got land that has water surrounding all around it, practically, with the Mediterranean Sea, the Aegean Sea, and the Ionian Seas. And we have hundreds and hundreds of islands. These peninsulas and archipelagos are covered with hills and mountains. It is very mountainous, very hilly. I mean, when we look at these pictures that we have back here, so I'm going to back up just a moment. Look, mountains, mountains, hills or mountains, hills, mountains. So, I mean, all over Greece, we have these hills and mountains. Now, what's going to happen because of this is it's going to provide isolation to the different communities of Greeks. So, therefore, they are not connected. Today, it's kind of amazing. We're having school virtually. I'm here at my house. Shania's at her house. Maddox at his house. Alexander's at his house. You guys are all in different locations. And we are meeting together through the power of technology. Some of you later on might go do something like play Among Us with your friends, where, your friends might even be in different states, different countries. I used to play a couple games with a guy who lived in Bulgaria, for Pete's sakes, and plenty of people that have been in Canada and England. And, it was fine. We can communicate. Back then, they didn't have phones that they could call people. They didn't have, internet. They didn't have helicopters or trains or planes or cars. If you wanted to go get from, Sparta all the way to Athens, guess what? You had to walk. I mean, maybe you had a horse, but still, you'd have to go through these mountain passes. You're going to have to go incredible distances. So you're not able to really do that. So it meant that Greece had city-states as opposed to a unified Greece. You couldn't control all of this under one person without the technology. So they're all separate, independent countries. So when we talk about ancient Greece, we're not talking about one monolithic culture one culture, yes, not one monolithic country. Now, we're going to see similar cultures with these, although we'll make some big differences, but it's not going to be just one place. Just like when we talk about Mesopotamia, how we talk about Mesopotamia because of cultural similarities, but they were all separate countries. Any questions or comments at this point? All right. Now, like we said, Greece has many, many forests. And because they have all of these trees, and because they are almost completely surrounded by water, or those island Greeks, they became shipbuilders. It makes sense. Khan doesn't want to be stuck on the land. He wants to go out there. He wants to make money. And plus, because, they're surrounded by water, he wants to go catch some fish to get some food. So they become excellent shipbuilders. And the Greeks become famous and well known for making their living through trade. So it's going to make sense because they're on the Mediterranean Sea. They're going to hop on their boats and they're going to see how they can make money off of their neighbors. And they're able to do this because they have a very, very important crop. Really two important crops that grow even though they have a lot of mountainous land. They're able to grow grapes and they're able to grow olives. Now, olives are going to be the most important of these. Grapes will as well, because grapes, they used to make wine, and wine was the preferred drink of the ancient times. Not because people like to get drunk, but because they'd actually make it much weaker than the wine we have today. But because water could be dangerous. They don't have water purification plants or anything like we do today. So they would go and mix wine in with their water to kill the bacteria. They didn't know they were killing bacteria and germs, but they knew if they drank water with a little wine, they wouldn't get sick. But if they just drank plain water, unless they knew exactly the source, they might be ill. But the most important crop for them is going to be olives. Now, olives are yummy. Some of you might disagree, but you're wrong. Olives are great. Black olives, green olives, all sorts of olives. But it wasn't the food that they wanted the olives for. They wanted them for the oil. Because pretty quickly, Zoe realizes she can squish these olives up and make olive oil. And might be thinking, oh, well, olive oil. Shania is probably like, I use that for cooking with my mom sometimes when we go do things. But it's more than just cooking. Because remember, they don't have light bulbs back then. They don't go and have, all sorts of fancy things like, so they use their olive oil for cooking. They use it for fuel for lanterns so that they can have light. In fact, the Greeks even used their olive oil to assist with their bathing. They would go and, so Danny, he's outside playing, he gets real dirty. He would go put some olive oil on his skin and use a seashell and scrape the olive oil off, which would go not only get rid of the dead skin, but pick up all of the dirt. And that's actually called exfoliating your skin. I'm sure some of you ladies know all about exfoliation. Mrs. Kenny talks about it sometimes. But this olive oil is incredibly useful. And Greece in the Mediterranean region is one of the few places that we have a ton of production of olives. So even when you look at olive oil today, a lot of times the best olive oils, the most expensive ones, are claiming to be from the Mediterranean. So pretty cool stuff. And here are some jars that they would have used to hold the olive oil. Any questions or comments here? Okay. Now, the climate of Greece, it is a Mediterranean climate, which makes sense because it's in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Which means if we have a Mediterranean climate, we are going to have mild temperatures. And what I mean by that is its lows are in the 50s and its highs are in the 80s. So kind of think super amazing weather all year round practically. You get tons of sunshine in the Mediterranean climate, and the rainfall is pretty limited to the winter time. Now, if you're on top of a mountain, yes, you will get snow. But if you're in the lowlands, you will just get rain. And so in the wintertime, there are snow-covered mountains, but that's really only in the wintertime. It's not so high that it's always snow-covered. But yeah, Mediterranean climate, beautiful. If you have ever been to California, you've experienced, especially mid to northern California, you've experienced the Mediterranean climate, even though it's not in the Mediterranean Sea. So let's see if you guys have been, actually first, are you any questions or comments? Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording at this point. Dun, dun, dun.